We are talking about the Swedish movie VIDEOMANNEN, also known as VIDEOMAN. This one is written and directed by Christian A. Soderstrom. Now, this is a kind of drama film first and foremost, but it obviously deals with the kind of the 80s and the kind of the VHS range of movies that we kind of had back then. So if you're a collector of certainly like giallo films, horror films of the 80s and stuff like that, this film details a story that involves one of your kind. And I was actually a VHS collector myself for many years and had a massive collection. But to be honest with you, for myself, I kind of moved on to kind of Blu-Ray and stuff like that. And the VHS, I just thought, although I kind of like the big art and all that, it's the case that they degrade and they're quite chunky and all that. So anyway, the story here focuses on this man called Ennio, and he once upon a time ran a kind of premium VHS shop in Sweden. Obviously, it's modern day. You know, the kind of the general market has changed, but he wants to create this kind of like boutique store for collectors. But he's down on his luck. He hasn't got any money. He's got an alcohol addiction, and he gets his hands on this copy of the movie Zombie, mint condition, original kind of issue, that a mysterious collector simply called Faceless offers him 10,000 euros for, which he agrees to sell. However, that videotape seems to have gone missing, and it's up to him to try and track down a list of suspects that may have stolen it. We also have this sub-story involving this woman called Simone. Now, Simone is a woman who is obsessed with the 80s, but more the kind of the general culture. She kind of like this. She sees it as her glory days. And you know, she's into 80s music, she crimps her hair and all that, but she's having personal problems. She has a kind of a estranged relationship with her daughter, she's having problems at work, and she herself is an alcoholic. So these two characters are kind of on sort of a parallel lives, both of which kind of have one foot back in the past, and they obviously kind of have some type of burgeoning kind of romance. So what do we think of VIDEOMAN? I think if you're a fan of kind of retro movies, certainly things like giallo, there's lots of references, lots of homages, lots of kind of visual clues that will sort of show you the kind of the filmmakers' love for that kind of subgenre. And there's some real kind of deep dives into some kind of like quite unique kind of geek history if you're into the kind of like the European kind of like giallo horror scene back in the day. There's lots to unpack here in regards to that. I also got to say, I think that the director has some type of a good visual flair. Now, despite this movie clearly having its kind of influence mainly in kind of the 80s and 70s and kind of the giallo horror and stuff, I was reminded of Edgar Wright's series Spaced, because that had a similar kind of plot in a way, in the fact that, I mean, if you can take comedy out of Spaced, all the comedy comes out of Spaced. You know, you have some characters here that have quite small lives, if that makes sense, but they go on an adventure which seems kind of like big to them, and there's kind of lots of kind of like geek culture references. The geek culture's a little different than that, but it just reminded me. But it also the kind of the way it's filmed, some of the lighting choices, the kind of like the visual style reminded me of Edgar Wright. So there's a lot of kind of like stylistic choices here. And I've got to say, despite this big story being relatively small scale, I was intrigued. I was intrigued to kind of see how it kind of like played out and stuff like that. And there are certainly some interesting and fun scenes. What doesn't work for me, I've got to say, our lead character of Ennio is a very unlikable protagonist. Partly by design, I think. He just comes across as a very kind of grumpy individual, and it's hard to root for. And he's just the sort of person you can imagine you'd hate dealing with. If you were ever a collector and you'd have someone that you just, oh man, you know, he's got a lot of stuff, I just hate having to speak to him. He's that guy. Now that's partially by design, I would say. He's meant to be like that, but nonetheless, you find it very hard to care for his plight in these things, because he just comes across, quite frankly, an asshole. And I've got to say, the acting isn't great. Now, I sometimes find it hard to judge foreign language films because it is Swedish, so there's subtitles. There are a few lines spoken in English. Faceless is English, for example. But there's a couple of instances where you'll see, especially Ennio, the character guy who plays that, like look at the camera on a few occasions. So there's the acting here isn't quite you know, up to spec, unfortunately. And like I've said, sometimes I struggle with foreign language films, but this one you can kind of tell. And at the end of the day, this is a very niche movie, so it's not going to be for everyone. And even for someone who was interested in VHS movies, I've got to say, it's just like, whew, I can see this is a really kind of small market, and it's just, there's not ultimately masses happened in this film. There's some neat little visual kind of cues, some neat little kind of visual references and homages. When it's all said and done, there really isn't much to this film in regards to kind of plot. This is kind of why I liken it to Space, because it's just very regular, almost regular things that are kind of like blown up to be more important in the kind of like the character's eyes. So this movie is certainly a you know, an interesting movie for a certain audience. Paul, who does reviews for this channel, is a big VHS collector himself, and I can imagine this kind of reminded me of him. Sorry, Paul, but nonetheless, it's kind of definitely a very niche market film. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.